part of the British Labour and trade union movement in the fight against racism and against the bosses and the system within the exploitation within Britain. But more importantly, also he have also been in a very active Kashmiri Marxist, who's actually come from a very different perspective to other people within Kashmir in terms of actually analysing the situation and also finding a way forward. He's been part of People's National Party of JKNF, Jammu Kashmir People's National Party. He was the vice president. He's the president of that now. Nazir's written a very small, brief pamphlet actually, and I think there are copies available at the back. You can ask him to sign them for you at the end as well, and they definitely must read. But I think what I could make of the gist of the pamphlet is that we're looking at the state really, which is basically a structured state, but within that, whether there is a nation or not. And a nation is something which is not static. The concept of nation is always fluid really. And that's something which we discussed from a Marxist perspective really. But I think the important thing for the discussion really, what I want to hear, what I want to develop, the points I want to develop really is this: what we had so far is where we are. What I want to really in the last hour is see where we can go, how we can actually move forward as well. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I really, I'm always aware at the end, when I'm given time at the end of any session, that the concentration level as the actually academic teacher, I have 40 years of experience, starts actually, slowly ebbing to diminishing right at the end of the first hour. So you're already here for 2 hours. I want to be very brief. I have attended actually, this is the whole, this booklet is part of my bigger project which I've been writing for years, and it's not near completion at this stage. To look at the whole history of evolution of struggle for rights and national sovereignty and independence. But because the importance of time, which is moving very fast, I decided to abbreviate that project and make this whole booklet available. Basically, it's an intervention into existing discourse on Kashmir and Kashmiri national struggle. It also is at 2-3 levels. One is actually conceptual clarity of what is a nation and what is a state. And I think 60 years of our struggle over has been derailed and diverted, and there is no clarity. So I'm trying to really challenge. This is intervention for the, activists, politicians who are involved in demand for national, independence. So the concept nation is not clear within the Kashmiri national movement. One. And also the movement which is trying to achieve some goals is divided and fragmented because the basic conceptual, confusion. And at the end, I'm trying to really present or offer some strategic ideas for an emergence of a genuine movement, national liberation or national independence. Politically, I'm a Marxist. Intellectually, I'm actually very, very kind of diverse influences on me because I have been in a academic at the University of Birmingham as a sociologist. So I do not only rely on one source of intellectual reservoir, but entire kind of academic interest in nation, conflict resolution, state, and also identity. I've written papers on identity which can be viewed, and I fully agree with the perspective Shamsad has actually accepted that identities are formed, deconstructed, reformed, and they are never actually in a stationary or static one. And also multiple identities are, and that far actually answer to those questions about, that we are told as Jews from Jehovah or is an evidence in practice that people have diverse identities, multiple identities, which people fail to acknowledge and use them as, oppositions. So that's another area which I will, actually try to clarify. So basically, the issue of Kashmir, as I saw and have been actually active in the movement, is what is a Kashmir? Kashmir state is what? I am saying that Kashmiri national identity, national status can be linked with the advent of or creation of this state, which was as a result of treaty, which was, briefly identified. The modern concept of actually nation is related with the existence of state, or within a state when, various minorities, cultural, religious, or ethnic, or linguistic are not satisfied, they demand to really have a separate status within a new state. So state and nations are interdependent, interrelated. Kashmiri, diversity of Jammu, regional diversity of Jammu, Valley, Ladakh, Gilgit-Baltistan, came into existence, in my perspective, from my point of view, from 1846 as a result of defeat of Punjab, rulers by the British Empire, and then Gulab Singh was really easy, ready-made, a kind of recipient of that kind of status which was granted to them. So the legal entity, as it was created by British imperialism in the United kind of or British India, came into existence from that day. Whatever actually debate is there, I'm not going to go into that because it's very complex. My point is that a legal entity called Jammu Kashmir was created, and people within that became actually subject to the rule by that ruler who, was appointed by British, who given on board, Dogra district Maharaja Gulab Singh. That gave, in my view, Kashmir a special status within British India, which was not actually acquired by many 670 were either, most of them were either administered by British Indian other regions, for example, south, north, west, various part of India which was a British region. They were princely states. Many were larger, others were smaller. But only 11 from one this is source I came across, or the other was 4, which were quite sovereign. So the south, I use the word sovereign for Kashmir because Kashmir had, apart from 3 areas, defense, foreign actually trade or foreign affairs, and communication. Raja of Kashmir was totally independent and sovereign, and British had left him alone to carry on. Within this status, there was, because a international organization which was the League of Nations. League of Nations also accepted the British administration within continent of India and the status of princely state. So these legal points are very important to understand that Kashmir was very separate situation, or had very separate status even under British imperial rule there. However, the indigenous population of that state which was created started a rights movement, which again Shamasino briefly addressed that question, or tried to describe that there was a movement for first educational reforms, and then it started a political, and by mid 20s and 30s it became a political movement. First, actually, the distinction which I try to draw is that how a national identity was becoming to exist or was Raja conceding, the Dogra Raja, ruler of Kashmir, conceding the popular demand by granting them a status which is actually distinct from subject to citizen. That is very important for a nation to have those rights which are granted by law as citizen, and also responsibilities. So 1927, the 27 state subject status was 1927. The struggle of Kashmiri to have actually political rights, socio-economic rights, starting from 1905, culminated into 1926. Raja granted them a special status. Why? Because Raja was employing people from other part of princely states from, for example, Punjab or Patiala, or the people, personalities in the armed forces, and actually bureaucrats from other states, and local people, led by Pandits, mainly educated, they start demanding that we need to really have, our own rights and stop bringing, people from outside. The point is that awareness of people in Kashmir and demands for right gave them a status of not as subject but citizen, and that's the distinction which I draw, in the book, that nation and state are correlated or interdependent, and the people who start the movement in a nation, they really need to be considered as becoming a nation. So nations are not given, they are constructed. There's a process, and that process started in 30s when first political organization was formed, Muslim Conference, all Muslim Conference. Immediately it was changed into National Conference within a year, and I don't want to go into that history, because the essence or the conceptual or ideological basis of that national movement was that we are diverse people, religiously, culturally, ethnically, geographically, regionally. We all are, although different, we all are part of one collective, which is under this rule, and we want to become a nation. So that actually movement was secular in its character. That movement was inclusive, bringing all different ethnicities and religious and linguistic identities. But it was changed later on. When all Muslim Conference was converted into national, it was then returned to Muslim Conference because there was a movement in India for a national movement, which Congress was divided in two, based on two-nation ideology. So actually one of the important point is that this original movement, which was inclusive in its character as secular, which incorporates every different kind of identity together, was divided because there was a division in the national movement in the mainland, and that created the basis for future development of the division of state into two parts. At the eve of partition, however, both Muslim Conference, which were revived again, and National Conference had two demands. There were two different demands. Muslim Conference wanted to actually convert the monarchy into a constitutional monarchy. They didn't want Raja to go away. They wanted to really Raja stay as a symbolic ruler of the state, but more democratic setup, for the majority of people. And as an independent, separate, existence, they both wanted. National Conference and Muslim Conference were in favor of independence of Jammu Kashmir states from rest of the part of India or Pakistan. And National Conference wanted Raja to actually abdicate and create a kind of republic. The vein of nationalist movement in India, from united to two separate, actually Muslim and Congress, Muslim League and Congress, affected the nature of struggle in Valley of Kashmir, or not in Valley, entire state of Jammu and Kashmir. After partition, it got more polarized. I don't want to actually dwell on what was the nature of that movement which tried to liberate Kashmir. 4th October is celebrated as a kind of independent day for existence of independent, creation of independent state. It's a disputed really day. We have as a nationalist movement, and I'm part of that kind of progressive and left kind of section of our Kashmir struggle, which I've said, okay, let's have 4 October as a a date for creation of independent Kashmir from India. But even that 4th October was backed, supported, and supplied by Pakistan through ex-army personnel from various regions of Kashmir, and also support from There's a latest book from Tariq Ali, a small one, has given a very detailed that how it happened. Also, the disputed issue of who sent invaders in Kashmir from northwest frontier, whether Qaid-e-Azam was aware or it was just part of Pakistani elite, also disputed. I'm saying that really it was Pakistani establishment which wanted to. Anyway, question is that this national question in Kashmir is still confused, although the nationalist movement is trying to really liberate the whole Kashmir from both India and Pakistan, but it's not clear. The people working in POK, which we call Pakistan occupied territories, including Baltistan and Muzaffarnagar, have never in majority addressed the issue of Pakistan control in that area. Pakistan actually dwell on the Act 74, which is the main instrument of governance inside Pakistan occupied territory, is a basically instrument of actually control and colonization. People in Azad Kashmir, so-called Azad Kashmir, Gilgit-Baltistan haven't got even status of a region or Suba, as they call it.
Local authority.
The Act 74 does not give any actually powers to administration inside Azad Kashmir. Okay, Gilgit-Baltistan, what they did with Gilgit-Baltistan was repeated the treatment which British Empire gave to these people through Raja. They had leased for 100 years. Pakistan is the same, getting those. So one of the perception which Fahd has mentioned inside Kashmir is very misplaced, that people are still battered in so forth. There is no political right. You cannot even actually, there is no legislature structure in Azad Kashmir. At least you, under Indian occupation, in Indian occupied Kashmir, there was a indigenous legislative assembly created, a legislation was, a constitution, sorry. Constitutional assembly was formed, a constitution was created, and under that constitution, arrangement was made to ratify Raja's, treaty of accession. That's the legal point of bringing it. In Pakistan, there is no constituent assembly. There is no constitution made by, and both United Nations regulations and in Indian or Pakistani actually constitution themselves do not permit any direct intervention in these areas. India tried to go, stealthily underneath and got this constitutional assembly in state under their control, and they passed this constitution to ratify Raja's treaty. But that is only temporarily. If you remember, people are aware, United Nations challenged that, because under United Nations, no part of Kashmir can decide any future, either accession or independence, without plebiscite, which has to be achieved after removal of armed forces. This brings us to the question of what is the status of Kashmir in the United Nations. I have raised the challenge that in United Nations, it's not a question of national sovereignty. It's not a question of Kashmir's national right of self-determination. It is a question of geopolitical interest of India and Pakistan to really allow people to follow the agenda of Mountbatten's recommendation, that once situation is normalized, when bulk of actually armed forces are removed from the territory, then Kashmiri should be allowed to decide to accede to India or Pakistan. So it's not a national question in the United Nations, because there was no representation by Kashmiris themselves. Although I have said that one resolution on Kashmir does actually allow people to openly and freely, use their self-determination, right of self-determination. But that resolution is, part of those successive resolutions which India and Pakistan, through intervention, constrain or control or contain the concept of self-determination. Self-determination in Kashmir's context in United Nations is not a right to declare your independence or actually reunification of a whole state as an independent people, but it is to decide whether you want to stay with India or Pakistan. Although it could be used if nationalist movement was led by not donkeys, but real, lions, then they could have used this very kind of open and disputed resolution. The self-determination has no constraints. Self-determination, I tried to explain, is granted in international law and political theory and political movements in two senses. One, as actually people living within a state have right to declare that they are not happy and they want to secede, get out of the state and want to form their own nation and state. That's one internationally accepted, meaning of self-determination. The other is the people who have been colonized, they will have actually right to declare that they want to actually become independent. So I'm saying that nationalist movement has been anchoring on wrong actually, tree. They have failed to address the issue of national. There is no nation. There are nations which are cultural, ethnic, religious, linguistic, regional entities or identities. They do not become nation by itself. They are constructed, brought together by national movement. So nation do not precede, nation do not precede national movement. It succeeds national movement. National movement, bring diversity of people together. And there was a chance under that, first movement which started in national conference, which could have carried on. It failed because intervention from both India and Pakistan, and Kashmiri themselves have submitted to that, hegemony of India and Pakistan in agenda of Kashmir. The way forward, I have suggested that there is no way Kashmiri can actually get this, resolved by through United Nations, because they're asking wrong people. They're asking India and Pakistan to give them this chance. And this is really a strange phenomenon. No occupied people ever ask their rulers to take us to the United Nations and get. They have to. So I'm saying that people have to. It's a paradigm shift which I'm actually asking the national movement to. You need to become, because I've dwelt with that how, for example, this Hurriyat was created. Hurriyat has no agenda of its own, it has no political program, it has no actually united ideology. It was created by a proxy war-mongering general in Pakistan. And it has destroyed the very basis of that, secular, inclusive idea of nationhood, and it created the whole world actually knows that it is a offshoot of Pakistani Islamization project, and Kashmiri movement has been turned into a religious kind of fundamentalist separatist movement. So you need to really address Kashmiri nationalists have to need to address. They need to form a united patriotic front, which has to be independent ideologically, politically, financially, and start a peaceful struggle to bring all people together from different regions. They have to go. I said that get out of your bunker from Srinagar or Islamabad, Jafrabad, go to Ladakh. Ask those people. Ladakhi do not consider themselves. Even Gilgit-Baltistan do not consider themselves Kashmiri. So the only way forward is to really start a peaceful movement, but going all to but having a common purpose. And I have suggested some unifying point. And then you start this movement of national liberation and right of self-determination within all part of Kashmir, even 4, 5, 6 groups in each region, and come to a platform, work for 5, 6 years, and become known internationally that you are actually a people who want to restore your lost sovereignty. The issue of sovereignty has been brought in forefront of struggle. Kashmir was a sovereign state, it was divided. And then you find another one country from the global actually community of the United Nations, which will take your project internationally. Through existing United setup, UN nation setup, through existing actually political structure, you have no chance. And my hunch as a sociologist and political theorist, and I will say that Kashmir is going to be given permanent. It's already divided. there will be the conflict resolution approaches, 3-track or multi-track approach will ultimately result into a further division or trifurcation of Kashmir and ratified by India and Pakistan, because their own interests are now demanding that the use of resources from rest of Central Asia for energy and trade and commerce or development, because it is led by the whole struggle in India and Pakistan is led by staunch capitalists, stooges of imperialism, and that's the perspective I come from. Unless you have progressive, radical, socialist, kind of emergence in Southeast Asia as a whole, South Asia as a whole, there is no chance for national movement to really, because nations are never given freedom by capitalists or imperialists. Nations have actually achieved freedom from progressive people or support from progressive people, and whole kind of anti-imperialist or anti-colonial movement is witness of that, and I will refer to that. Vietnam struggle, Cuban struggle, or Algerian struggle, or other, Angola, Mozambique, and Latin America, they were supported not by America, not by Britain, not by capitalist stooges of theirs, but socialist and Marxist regimes and movements in the world. And that is the route we need to really find an independent platform to bring all the, people need to really think what the hell we are doing. 4 people forming a party and using the name of National Front, that's it's a front of the very concept of nation and national movement. We are too divided, too diverse, too dishonest, and too actually intellectually lazy to go and find new avenues. And that's the challenge that we need to really look at the whole issue, otherwise we are wasting 3 generations. We don't waste time.
After the bold challenge, to all of you, really.
Good.
I'm not going to ask any questions to Nazir. I'm going to open it for discussion. Half of the people have already left. So we want to continue this discussion for the next 10 to 15
That's
20
my
minutes, right?
faith every time.
But before anyone else leaves, right, there was an entrance fee, £3, I think, for this discussion. So, people, I'm asking people who have a voter ticket, please make a voluntary contribution. So we can pay for the, pay for the room and, the refreshments and all that. That's all. So, on that most important note, sorry, that comrade and then Sadr. Sorry, Sadr.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Could you give your name, please?
My name is Ali.
Ali?
Ali, yes.
Right, okay.
In terms, yes, you said capitalism have corrupted so many politicians by George Bush at the first, but last one we don't know who. In terms of the different culture in Kashmir and India, and inside Kashmir itself, is Pakistani Kashmir and Indian Kashmir, they have, I saw some of them, but there's minor different culture, it's okay. With the religions, don't you think the religion is part of the problem or part of the solution? I haven't finished my question yet. Because there's so many liberal groups, they have dismantled with respect to the rule of law, for example, in Egypt. They united all of them, the liberal, the corrupted politician, corrupted religious, like head of the church, head of the Sheikh al-Azhar. They became against a very respected human principle, which is the ballot box. The religion is part of the problem or part of the solution. In case of Britain, there is now so many religious division in India and Pakistan, Kashmir, yes. But do you think bringing them into the central religion, centralize them, and reforming the financial situation of each religious group, for example, the Hindu apart, Buddhist apart, the Muslims, and reforming their financial situation, was holding them the responsibility, social, economic, and also.
I'm sorry,
would be
because of
solution
the lack
or
of
be the
time, can
problem?
we just stick to questions, please? I'm
Could
really
you
sorry.
quickly conclude your question? Your question is religion part of problem or part of solution?
Yes, you right to centralize the religion back, because the religion now is out of control.
Hold on.
bring it back again to control, and with the reform.
No, actually nation has progressed apart from one, there's no nation in the international global community which is based entirely on religion. One example is Israel, which doesn't claim itself as religion, but was created for a religious community. The other is Iran. Both are struggling, okay? No, in our perspective, my answer to your question, religion is a problem. Religion divides, let alone...
It's a problem.
Religion divides on the basis of particularly the religion of political Islam. Political Islam as a religion is the most divisive and brutal, instrument in the hand of corrupt people, because they are killing. Look at what's happening in Pakistan. Religious movement was created by Saudi Arabia, American imperialism, and Pakistani corrupt generals to counter, as Fahd said, the threat of socialist or communist regime from Russia. The question is, what has happened? That religious movement or Islamization process in Pakistan is most brutal form of fascism.
But Mr. Speaker, please don't give me a wrong answer. I ask you about centralized religion. You tell me Iran religion, Iran are Persian culture was partial religion. It's called Shia. It's not religion, Iran.
Sorry, I'm going to take stuff that we
Shia, school of Shia.
We can have that discussion afterwards.
Brother, this discussion is on Kashmir, not on Iran, please.
Yes.
Can I just ask all the panel, please? From my perspective, I'm a British Kashmiri, and obviously I come from Pakistani occupied Kashmir, or Azad Kashmir. And in both parts, Indian part and Pakistani part, that's controlled by both India and Pakistan. Political parties from India and Pakistan are strengthening their control in those areas. Do you see us Kashmiris ever trying to loosen that control, or India and Pakistan themselves, to a certain extent, giving Kashmiris limited autonomy or some sort of self-determination, or they're going to convert into Greater India or Greater Pakistan? Because Pakistan is talking about the fifth province, and obviously the BJP governments just won the parliamentary elections. They're also going to take part in local elections. And the same has happened in Pakistani occupied Kashmir. Both
India and Pakistan post-partition have violated the term of agreement in United Nations vis-a-vis these two areas. They have no legal basis, no legal to introduce Congress in the occupied Kashmir, or Jan Singh historically has been there, part of RSS setup, which is Hindu fascist organization. Similarly, in Pakistan occupied, there is no legal basis for existence of PPP or existence of MNL or any other. So the whole idea that this demand from India and Pakistan is misplaced, because India and Pakistan has gradually been trying to corrupt Kashmiri politicians to accept their hegemony. Okay? And by violating openly their own constitutions and internationally agreed signatory of both these countries of those agreements, they have planted their own parties in there. So you cannot actually expect that solution which I'm talking about is the restoration of sovereignty. You cannot be sovereign people by having part of you handed over to your occupiers. So they are going to actually gradually consolidate this control. There is no way. Why? Because Hurriyat, at the moment, I appreciate Fahad's actually detailed, very in-depth ethnographic study of what youth are doing, but political expression of that is still under control of Mirza Farooq or Gilani. Who are these people? They are paid by agencies. They don't talk about Gilgit, right of Gilgit or Baltistan. Similarly, in Azad, so-called Azad, POK, neither Noon League, nor PPP, nor All Muslim Conference are talking about Gilgit and Baltistan, or they are all saying that let's liberate from, or even Azad Kashmir. They are not even talking about let's have this I mean, Kala Kanun, Act 74 should be thrown out of bloody, territory and coal. This coal has been going on for the last 4 years. I've been writing and sending paper to everybody. The coal, constituent convention of indigenous parties from Gilgit, Baltistan and POK and create a constitution and form a constituent assembly, all actually symbolic, but it will have a ripple effect in the international community.